Global trends. With a global population nearing 6.9 billion people, humankind is having an unprecedented impact on Earth's natural resources. The consequences of continued and unchecked consumption include threats to global food and water security, economic well-being and environmental health. Combined with the impact of increasing food prices and global economic crises, hundreds of millions of people worldwide are now faced with increased uncertainty and food shortages. Marine ecosystems of Southern Africa. The Southern African region straddles three great oceans, the Atlantic, Indian and Southern Oceans. The region has a total of 8 coastal states: Angola, Democratic Republic of Congo, Mauritius, Mozambique, Namibia, Seychelles, South Africa and Tanzania. The living marine resources of the region's waters, including migrating fish stocks, are shared between 2 or more countries. South Africa is the home of a diverse fishing community comprised of small-scale and industrial-scale fisheries targeting a diverse array of species for local and international consumption. Management of large marine ecosystems in Southern Africa. Within the Southern African region, there are several regional fisheries management organizations, or otherwise known as RFMOs, and regional fisheries bodies delegated with managing high seas fisheries and migratory fish stocks which straddle the waters of more than one state. The Large Marine Ecosystem, or LME, concept categorizes marine regions of the world according to the ecological rather than political or economic criteria. South Africa's sectors. 2 components are identified: aquaculture and wild capture fisheries. Aquaculture is relatively new in South Africa and is currently considered an underdeveloped sector. Historically focused on high-value species such as abalone, mussels, and oysters, the South African government has identified aquaculture as an area for expansion. Looking at wild capture, the wild capture fisheries include commercial, recreational, and subsistence fisheries, each with their own specific research and management mandates. The commercial fishing sector can be divided into highly industrialized fisheries, which generally operate offshore, and nearshore fisheries, which are generally more traditional and require less capital investment. The commercial fisheries of South Africa. Some examples are hake inshore trawl, hake longline, hake landline, small pelagic, south coast rock lobster, west coast rock lobster inshore, west coast rock lobster offshore, squid, horse mackerel, prawn trawl, tuna and swordfish longline, abalone, seaweed, demersal shark, traditional lionfish, and white mussel. The status of South Africa's inshore resources. Many of South Africa's inshore marine resources are considered overexploited or collapsed, with a few being fully exploited. This is mainly due to the accessibility of the resources to a wide range of marine user groups, including traditional line fishers, recreational fishers, and inshore trawl and longline fishers. At the 2002 World Summit on Sustainable Development, South Africa undertook to maintain and rebuild fish stocks to levels able to produce maximum sustainable yields by no later than 2015. Poaching of commercially important inshore species. The first example is abalone, otherwise known as perliman or Haliotis medae. Abalone, a slow-growing and late-maturing species, is a highly prized seafood delicacy in the Far East. Catches of abalone have declined steadily since the mid-1960s, and the prognosis for the stock of abalone in South Africa is pessimistic given the extent of illegal harvests. It is estimated that the illegal catch of abalone exceeded the legal commercial catch by more than 10 times during the past decade. The South African abalone is listed on the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species. And despite increased management and strengthened compliance, illegal fishing remains high. Continued levels of illegal fishing prompted a complete closure of the fishery in 2008. A partial reopening of the fishery occurred in 2010. The status of South African marine resources. The above graph illustrates the status of some commercially important marine species exploited in southern Africa. The information highlighted in this graph represents the latest available information from the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, but does not represent all of South Africa's exploited marine resources. The status of tuna species represented in this graph is sourced from the latest available data from the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission, or otherwise known as the IOTC, the Commission for Conservation of Southern Bluefin Tuna, or otherwise known as CCPST, and the International Commission for the Conservation of Atlantic Tuna, otherwise known as the ICCAT. Competition for fish between humans and seabirds. The two endemic and vulnerable seabirds, the African penguin and the Cape gannet, feed primarily on sardine and anchovy, both of which are targeted by commercial small pelagic fishery in South Africa. As seabirds and fisheries overlap both in size of prey and depth of exploitation, there is intense competition between fisheries and the declining penguin and gannet populations. The importance of diversification in the Southern African seafood industry. Diversification in the South African seafood industry refers to the broadening of the market and access to new markets. Equal levels are one way to enter new markets or create niche markets which are more likely to withstand economic changes. An example which illustrates this is the difference between the MSC hake trawl fishery, which withstood the recent global economic crisis, versus the hake longline industry, which was largely tied up for the past year due to the collapse in their primary market in Spain with little alternative. South Africa's Fisheries Management Mission Statement. A competitive, fast-growing economy which creates sufficient jobs for all work seekers. A redistribution of income and opportunities for the poor. A society in which good health, education and many more services are made available to the public. An environment in which homes are secure and places of work are in a sense productive.